utterance of vision must be loud in your heart until it has furnished your heart with all the granular details of how to make the vision come to manifestation. If you build by timeless principles as designed originally for the world to, function by,
Yes.
you might not make immediate success, but you
Yes.
will make lasting and compounding success.
How do you account for the role of chance, privilege, and maybe even luck in becoming the 1%?
Oh yeah, I mean that's an inevitable component in that, right?
Good morning, sir. Thank you
Morning.
so much for deciding to do this. It's really an honor. I've not been able to sleep properly knowing that we are doing this morning. I slept around like a.m. and I was up by like 5 a.m. So yes. Thank you so much, sir, for doing this. Sajedi is a thought alchemist and a community transformation strategist. He's the co-founder and CEO of Ennovate Lab, an innovation hub and a startup foundry committed to building resilient innovation ecosystems in underserved university communities and creating borderless innovative solutions for communities of all kinds. He works with bold and visionary founders through Kiola to build timeless brands and digital experiences for their audiences. And he also works with Cognizi, which is a flagship product of the Lab Startup Foundry, to help overturn the productive knowledge deficit of Africa. More than 5,000 people, including students, government officials, business owners, have been equipped with critical and creative thinking skills since 2018. His work has been featured in Radical's Ziwani African Blockchain Institute, among other local and international media. He sits on the board of multiple reputable organizations, including Spring NG, Literary Society, Striving for Greatness EdTech Initiative, and Deep Space. He is also a Branches Worldwide leader and We Will Lead Africa Fellow. He is a certified butterfly work design thinking mentor, a faith-driven entrepreneur group facilitator, and the convener of Ogumosho Digital Economy Summit. He is also a member of Zewani's advisory panel and is married to Mrs. Temitayo, and they are blessed with 3 children. Thank you so much, sir, for having me and for coming here to do this.
Well,
Yes, sir.
yeah, I mean, I look forward to the time we'll have together.
Yes, sir. While I decided to even talk about becoming the 1% was because I listened to it when it was first published. I listened and I was shocked first. I was very, very shocked listening to it because some of the things that you mentioned there, for example, acquire tastes, read your mind to greatness, all of those things were things that were already happening with me, but I didn't have a way to explain what was going on. I just knew that for some weird reason, I wasn't interested in a lot of things, and I was interested in a lot of things. So I like to read a lot. So the reading journey for me started with a friend of mine that had an app, anybooks.com. So she was using it to read novels. And so I collected the app. And then what I searched for was books on entrepreneurship, books on business, books on intelligence, books on psychology. And so I found Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I found What Everybody's Saying. I found How to Live Life Like You Are Playing Chess by Gary Kasparov. I found a number of books like that, and I started reading. I kept searching for books. When any books eventually got, then I now moved over to PDF drive. I started searching for books and reading, and it adjusted a lot of things about myself. I couldn't be friends with anybody where I was staying because I lived with my parents for a while before I eventually left to go to school and stuff. Where my parents stay, I am only friends with two people. And that's because we grew up together and we are also on our separate journeys. Aside that, I'm not friends with any other person. Not because I don't want to be, but because we just don't have anything in common. And even in school, and even after school. So listening to Becoming the 1% really, really put a lot of things into perspective for me, and also now gave me more insights into what I was doing and how to do it better. So thank you so much for the talk that you delivered. It was really, really, really life-changing for me.
I mean, I'm so excited.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, I prepared a number of questions on my own before we go to the questions that a lot of people asked, because there were a lot of questions that people asked. We have like over 27 questions, and the 27 questions has like maybe 3 or 4 in one question. So the first question would be, how, if everyone were to strive to become the 1%, would the concept itself lose its meaning? Or how does exclusivity play to its value?
Okay, that's a very good question. So, first of all, I like competition because I feel like competition is bred from a scarcity mindset, right? So, what
Yes.
actually makes competition is because there is scarcity of something, right? So, the reason why people compete is because there is only one first prize, right? So, the reason why people compete is because there are only so much customers, right, in that particular
Yes.
segment. The reason why people compete is
Yes.
because there's only one role. Maybe that's the managing director's role. So there's this sense of competition that is bred as a product of scarcity, right? But the scarcity mindset in itself is, how do I call it, a very debilitating mindset to possess. I mean, if you live with a scarcity mindset, you've done yourself significant harm already, right? But the
Yes.
concept of becoming the 1% is a metaphorical concept, right? That lets you realize that there is space for some exceptional people who give themselves to the process by which they become exceptional. So it's not so much of like we have a certain 1% we're targeting. Let's say for instance, 1% of the world population right now is about 90 million. Right, that's about 90 million people. We have about 9 billion people in the world, so that's 90 million. I mean, there are so many areas in life that I can be one of 90 million. There are so many areas in life, but the question is, how do you really measure it, right? How do you
Yes.
really
Yes.
measure, right? So for instance, if I say that I'm very skilled at building mental models, how do I know how many other people mental models, right, in the world,
Yes.
to really
Yes.
be
Yes.
able to like assess if I'm the 1%?
I'm
But
truly 1%.
idea of being the 1% is something everyone can relate with, to show that before you get into this number, this metaphorical number, you need to actually like give yourself the strongest demands. You need to lay the strongest demands upon yourself. You need to kind of like, get yourself into a space where you're not slack, where you're not giving excuses, where you're pushing, right? But the beautiful thing is that there are some instances where you actually get the accolades that you are like the best of the best, right? That you are the best in a class, or at that point you are the foremost authority on something, right? So there'll be instances where accolades will come, but it's not every time accolades will come. But what happens is that in yourself, you will know that you've actually like outdone yourself again and again in building
Yes.
capacity and excellence. Yeah, so that's
Yes.
that's like the idea.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So next question will be, how do you prevent the journey towards the 1% from leading to an over attachment to results, which can eventually or potentially cause unhappiness? Successful people ask better questions, and as a result, they get better answers. That is a line from the book The Art of Asking Questions by Sajidi. Hi guys, it's Loba here. I'm a product manager amidst many other things. And asking questions is such an important aspect of my job because it helps to understand the user better and helps to properly determine insights, properly determine things that we are going to implement in the product to ensure that the product is solving the user problem or the user needs. I said all this to say, get Sajedi's book. It helps to give you a proper frame on how to ask questions, gives you or equips you with the right models, the right frameworks for coming up with questions and asking questions. Now, this doesn't just work for me as a product manager. It cuts across every form of career and even your life as a whole. The better your questions, the better your answers, and then the better your results. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so that and I think that's why I started out that way. That it's
Yes.
more of a metaphorical language than an actual. I mean, but if we look at it, anyone who has basically, maybe anyone in Africa right now who has earned a bachelor's degree, you're actually in like the top 10% of Africa, right? Because it's actually very like it's an elite position just by completing your undergraduate degree, because a whole lot of people do not have that opportunity. If you were
Yes.
maybe a master's student and you're going into a PhD, you're most likely one of the top 5 1% in Africa, by many different privileges we have, right? We're already in some significant company of, some significant elite company, right? Take for instance wages. If somebody is earning, let's say, about 5 million per year, like naira, even naira, 5 million naira per year, like you're already in some elite company, like by virtue of the fact
Yes.
that a bulk of people do not even have access to that. So on many significant levels, you're already part of some elite exclusive company just because of
Yes.
doing life. So what it means is that you have a lot of privileges you have to acknowledge, right? And I feel like the idea of acknowledging privileges
Yes.
goes a long way to help us feel joyful and to help us be grateful for the things that we already have. Now, in pushing to build yourself, right, to develop yourself, the understanding is that your real competition is yourself and not necessarily like in comparison to other people, because
Any
the
other
idea of
person.
comparing with other people is that we can't really have an accurate measure of competition, actually. You know why? Because our lived experiences are different. So let me give a very good example. Imagine that I am somebody who, like, I feel more at home, right, looking at textbooks that have images, while this other person prefers textbooks that are just text all through. Now,
Yes.
if I have a lecturer who says this text is what we're going to be using for this program, for my course, now what happens is that it actually favors this other person, right? So this other person has a
Yes.
text that has no pictures, and then I have to
Yes.
struggle with that. If this other person gets better than me with, let's say, 2 points and is the best in the class, is that person really, really, really the best?
Truly
Or is it that it was because of a factor or two that actually made the person come out tops, right?
works
So
in the
the
person's favor.
nuances are so varied, right? And that's why the real
Yes.
person you're in
Yes.
competition with is yourself. And so if you're in competition with yourself, the idea is, what measures am I meant to have for myself that will show that I've become better than who I was last year? For instance, one of the ways I evaluate how I'm doing better is like how much more responsibilities I can take on and still feel the same level of being at rest as I felt when I had lesser responsibility.
Less to do.
That shows I've grown more efficient. That shows that my mind has expanded more. That shows I'm processing things on a faster rate. That shows that like build more mental models to kind of like almost automate decision making around things.
Yes.
So this is one of the ways I evaluate how better I have become, right? And so it has allowed me to take on more responsibility, and I still feel the same level of rest. In fact, sometimes I feel far better than I was in previous years. That's
That's good.
because I've stretched myself, right? I've gained more mastery. My reasoning capacities have been upgraded, right? I've discovered new mental models I had no clue about that now make something I will have struggled for 30 days to be done in 3 days, that kind of thing. So, and as I keep doing this, it becomes more evident to people around. It becomes more evident to people that, both far and near, that this person is just getting better and better and better by the day. So
Better.
I think that's how you can help yourself not to get over attached to results as a proof of you making, like, it results in comparison to other people, actually, right? And not necessarily results by yourself, as it were. So yeah, I think I could just pause there.
I think I had to realize that more this year when
Okay.
I've had a number of situations that happen to me almost yearly that usually cause for me to move better. During the live session with the volunteers, you mentioned some things that you just finished at that time, like a number of situations where I went through the same thing. The first thing that happened in March this year was I realized that I should stop comparing myself with anybody and I should take myself as my own competition, because it seemed like, especially when I was running my photography brand, it seemed like, no, I have to do better than this person. I have to do this. I have to do this. I had to go. Like, I just sat down all of a sudden and I realized that I should face the lens at myself and look to be better than I was yesterday. And so I now listened, because I like to listen to a couple of materials when I am on a journey like that, so that I just find a way to place myself in some some sort of bubble where I don't expose myself to different things. I just expose myself to a certain number of things that I know will cause me to adjust again. So I listened in again. I was like, okay, I am my own competition and I need to focus on how I can be better than I was last month, last week, yesterday. I started to track, okay, today, what will I say I did better than yesterday? And how can I make it a consistent thing such that it almost becomes a part of my life for me to be, so that it's not something that I will start and then revert back to yesterday's position, or it's not something that I'll do for a while and then it would be really hard. It's supposed to get easier over time. So yes, thank you so much, sir. So next question is, how do you ensure that your journey to the 1% leaves a positive legacy for others, not just personal gain?
I think one of the things, so in my approach, one of the things that I think has really helped me is I love to share my journey with people. I feel like I could make people journey faster than they would if I could share the nitty-gritty of how I got into the things I got into the places I've gotten into. And I feel like that idea of being accessible for people to ask questions, sharing my journeys without necessarily polishing it to look like I always won or I always, did well or something like that, makes it easy for other people to escape such ditches, such pitfalls and stuff like that, right? So yeah, by choosing to allow your story be a ladder for other people, by choosing to allow it to be how do I call it, like a hack, right? Like, a hack, right? A shot for other people. That's a very,
Yes.
very interesting one. Now, another thing is, even in the pursuit of the things I'm pursuing, I have prioritized relationships. Relationships are like very sacred to me. They are sacred. There is no relationship that God has blessed me with that I want to do injury to because I'm in pursuit of something. And I'll give you some very,
Something.
very interesting examples. My company, for instance, we should have been doing some volumes of business since we started. But because there is someone in the community who is already doing something like that, we felt that God wanted us to keep that relationship intact, right? More than He wanted us to make the money we'll have made if we entered into the person's line of business, right? Because the idea is if we actually entered into that line of business, we'll have come out
Yes.
tops because of the way
Yes.
we approach our things. But
Yes.
we
Yes.
looked at the lucrative line of business and we had to say no, that this relationship is far more valuable to us than the money we could make in the process. And there was another instance wanted to buy a property, and there was options, but the best option at that point was all exactly opposite like the facility of another one of our partners in town. And I told my team, I said, if that's the last place to buy, we will not buy it. We would go look for somewhere else to buy. Because sometimes these things do not seem so important. But I've learned what is called systems thinking, and I've also learned what is called second order or third order thinking, right? A lot of people only think about immediate outcomes. They don't think
Yes.
about the next level of outcomes after the immediate ones,
Comes.
and even the next level of outcomes after the immediate ones. But we are already thinking about all the possible outcomes, and we realize that across all the different outcomes, like it is going to be a loss, right, for both of us, right? In that
Yes.
sense of the word,
Yes.
loss of trust,
Yes.
and then a whole lot of other things that would now, not benefit the
And see
community we're
from
trying to
that
serve.
place. Yes.
So
Yes.
prioritizing relationships is very, very important, right? Money and things relating to that sometimes have driven wedges in between solid relationships. Imagine that somebody's aware of a scholarship, right, that you need. And then they also feel like they need it. And then they keep it to themselves because they feel like if I share with this person, is likely to get the scholarship and then I lose out on the scholarship. The way to think about it is, wow, I'm going to share with this person. So in case I lose it, at least one of my people will get it.
We'll get
That's the way
it.
to think about it. So prioritizing relationships ensures that you do not become warped in the process of becoming the 1%. Yeah, that's a very, very, and then God is very essential. The idea that God has to be involved in the way you process life makes all the difference as well.
Wow, this is such a different way of thinking. For a while, I have struggled with this concept, having that, okay, the regular way to do business is to be very ruthless and go after all the things that you want to get, irrespective of who it will affect. Because if you are thinking of who it will affect, you most likely will not do a lot of things. But wow,
You
prioritizing
see,
relationships over results. Yes, sir.
let me say something about that. You see, one of the things I've learned is, one of the things I've learned is if you build by timeless principles, right? By timeless principles as designed originally for the world to, function by,
Yes.
you might not make immediate success, but you will make lasting and compounding success. It will be lasting and compounding. It will keep compounding. I know what I'm saying. I know the kind of I know like so by not taking the low hanging fruit of, for instance, that particular line of business, we have had to think deeper and we have uncovered new lines of business that we have a moat around. It's like we have the monopoly on these things because no other person thought that deeply to arrive at those things. So that's most of the time that's what happens. Like we just go for the first thing we see, but everybody scrambles around the first things they see. But when somebody goes deeper, you build a moat around what you've come into, and then everybody comes to you because they see that you are the authority in this thing. Yeah.
That's very true. Wow. The moment you decide to alter your perspective around a particular thing, you just allow for a completely new set of thought processes. You allow
I
new
tell you.
things to be
I
birthed.
tell you. I tell you.
Wow. Wow. So, how do you account for the role of chance, privilege, and maybe even luck in becoming the 1%?
Oh yeah, I mean that's an inevitable component in that, right? If you're born into a privileged family, like doors open for you almost non-stop. Sometimes if you're born in a certain location could also be a component of accomplishment, right? Then again, right, things like you have a very wonderful voice. I mean, so there are a lot
Yes.
of things that
Yes.
could combine to form privilege for people and chance also. I mean, for instance, imagine that the year that you were about to enter into university was the year a government decided to give scholarships to people to go to the US or the UK, and then you got the scholarship to go, right? So that's chance, right? So all of those things actually contribute, but at the same time, nobody should be a victim of only if I had all these privileges, right? I mean, the fact that you even recognize privilege shows that you are intelligent enough, because not everybody is able to recognize privilege, right? So the fact that you could recognize privilege shows that you are actually intelligent enough to create your own privileges, because you understand what privilege begins to look like. If I was not born in such a family, can I build relationships with people like that? If I was not born in such a location, can I actually leverage being in that location, or can I develop relationships in that location that could serve me?
Yes.
If it was a scholarship scheme that allowed this person go to the US, right? Can I automate the process of finding opportunities so that if such opportunity comes again, I am the first to
I
know?
won't miss out
So
of it.
I mean, the idea of just identifying privilege shows that you're intelligent enough. It should not make you lose your agency and make you just sit down and say, well, you see, my life is unfair, right? Life has giving me the short end of the stick. And so I'm just going to wait till things come to me. No, things don't happen like that, right? So if you don't have a good voice, then compose songs, right? Compose. You could also get royalties because your name is on
Yes.
the IP and stuff like that. So this leads me to something. I feel like the lack of thinking deeply actually leads to a lot of ingratitude and a lot of victim mentality. I was in a company retreat 2 weeks ago, and I was teaching them about strategic thinking. And a lady asked and said, people say I think very much, like I think too much and all of that. And sometimes I'm wondering that the thinking is not really leading to any outcomes. And I said, let me tell you the truth. There's a difference between worrying and thinking. They look almost the same, but they are not the same. Worrying doesn't have an end goal in mind. Thinking has an end goal in mind, right? So a lot of people do worrying and not thinking, right? Or they do daydreaming and not thinking, right? So I told them, the idea is thinking is a disciplined process. It's a very disciplined process. If you can think very well, you begin to uncover layers. I mean, Yoruba said that whoever can think well will actually be full of gratitude, right? Because when you think to a point, you begin to see that even though you didn't get these certain privileges, you actually have some that you should actually be grateful for and can be your launch pad to do greater things, right? So I would say that those things contribute. but they don't necessarily disqualify people that don't have them from also becoming the 1%. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I had to come to terms with something like this sometime. This was in October. I had issues with work. I couldn't do work as much as I wanted to because where I stay, the light is not as good. So I spend a lot of money ensuring that my devices are charged every day. So every day I go and charge my devices because I can't not be available for work.
Yeah.
And so it almost brought me to the point where I could have lost some opportunities because I'm like, I can't really do much about this. Like, I can't control power. I can only try to find or find a way around it.
Yeah.
But I eventually had to decide, and I spoke to my friend, and I just decided, well, I will leave my comfort zone. Like my comfort zone, like it's easier for me to stay at home.
Yeah.
I will leave home. I would go from the island to the mainland and go to somewhere that has better structure for their lights. That way I can do this and I will just keep getting this thing done. Now, in between that time and now, the amount of things that I've been able to do, I don't think I would have been able to accomplish it staying at home the way I stay. I wouldn't have been at all. I have been able to read more. I've been able to plan my time even more, structure my day more. Now I can say I'm waking up by 4 a.m. In between 4 and 9 a.m. These are the things that I need to get done. In between 9 and 2. 9 and 2 is when they take the lights. So in between 9 and 2, these are the things I will do. I won't need too much power to get some things done. So these are the things I'll do in between 9 and 2. And by 2, when the light comes back on, my system will be close to dying. I would have been done with this, and this. So now I can start this next set of things. It's just opened up a completely different set of things for me to do. So yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Listening to Becoming the 1%, one of the first questions that I had was, why is everybody not thinking like this? Why, like this life is more colorful. Like I see it as not doing this. I feel like life is dull, not doing this much. And I feel like life is more colorful like this. So I would ask that the desire to be the 1%, is it innate to human nature, or is it just a societal construct, or is it something in between?
So I would say that. So there is this particular book. I've forgotten the name of the man again. The book is titled Pedagogy of the Oppressed, right? And the idea is there is a way education, the kind of education you have access to, kind of like conditions your mind, right? It conditions your mind in a certain way. I mean, the colonial masters, they might have left, but they left a lot of structures to keep us in a construct, right? So, I mean, education in Nigeria was framed more to raise managers, was raised more to raise was built more to raise administrators and not creators, and not right entrepreneurs, not risk takers, and stuff like that. So what we've seen is that the way we are even educated kind of like compresses us into boxes. This is the way to think. And so our parents, I mean, for many of us, our parents back then wanted us to be either medical doctors, engineers, lawyers, and all of that. Like it was just this range of professions, because the idea was there's security in these things. However, well, life has forced us to rethink all of those careers, but still, they are like the top careers. They're still the prestigious careers, right? But now we have software engineering, right? In terms of you don't even have to go to a university to actually study that. You have UI UX, you have, product design, you have all of these things, right? But still, the education system still limits people even when they're building software, even when they're kind of like, designing products. It still limits them in how they approach these things. And if you actually do a study of the founders that have actually either scaled businesses, exited businesses, and all of that, most of them have either gone to private universities or they schooled abroad at one point in time in their lives, right? That kind of thing. Now, what that shows us is it is the educational system that is maybe the first culprit, right? In terms of the outcomes of the way we think. So how can we build new constructs of education apart from school? That's why I have my Lead with JD Telegram group, for instance. I feel like that platform has been helping people break out of a lot of the limits in their minds, right? A lot of the constructs. My newsletters are doing the same thing, right? Events I've been holding events in a way to trigger these things. And thankfully, we have a lot of other people who are doing this. Look at all that pushes out content that makes you think in a different way. Kule Sorinyo also does something like that, right? These are people that are trying to help people break out of the box. For me, the beginning of this for me was when I learned about the liberal arts education system. It kind of like just changed my approach to learning. I mean, I was in university studying agronomy, but you'll find me in the library reading books on psychology, sociology, and all that. I was reading popular science, tracking inventions and innovations, and then I was doing a lot of literary arts. I was doing spoken word, I was writing poems, I was publishing anthologies in the US. So I was not your typical student while going through school. I was basically a renaissance person in that sense, right? I was doing science, doing the literature, doing, social sciences. So the person that came out of university was educated, right? Educated, and not necessarily just somebody with a certificate. I mean, I was educated, as it were, and most of that was by a self-directed learning process, as it were. So I would say that the reason why many people are not thinking in this direction is because of exposure. There has been nobody to really tell them that these things are possible. People have not told them these things are possible. The education system has taught them to rather do rote memorization rather than practicing critical thinking, right? Or creative thinking, for that matter. But these things are already baked into a lot of the systems, outside our country, right? So I would say that like more fora that can allow us think, from a liberal arts perspective. I mean, right now, the US itself is moving from the liberal arts perspective, is going more into specializations in engineering and the STEM, right? But recently, they kind of like upgraded STEM to STEAM, right? So science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So they've kind of like integrated art because they saw that STEM alone was not going to allow them live colorful lives. But they think that Africa may not know, if we want to follow in the footsteps of America, for instance, is that the reason why America is what it is because of the liberal arts foundation that they first built. So now they can now build specializations in the sciences, in technology on it. They're already wired to think creatively. They're already wired to think out of the box. But we want to just go to STEM without first helping people learn how to think. Basically, the liberal arts is to teach you how to think, to study how generations past thought, and then for you to build new thinking models on how they thought. But we don't have that. I was on a panel some time back about architecture, the business of architecture, and I'm like, Nigeria does not have a philosophy that undergirds our architecture. You just see people building things. There is no school of thought around how architecture is done. Basically, we don't have schools of thought around things. We don't have schools of thoughts. Even our politics is not built on schools of thought. That's why somebody can ditch one party and move to the other party. You will hardly hear of a Democrat moving to a Republican party because even the political system is built on a philosophy that you are entrenched in. So it's a family tradition from generation to generation, right? But yeah, it's anywhere Beleface. I'm very sorry. Yeah, anywhere Beleface. It's very, very, tragic. But I feel like conversations like this could begin to, and the fact that globalization is like a foregone conclusion, I think is also helping people to learn how to think outside the box and begin to think like, well, I could actually be exceptional in my generation. I could be exceptional in my generation. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. I think this was my trajectory to eventually get into this point. After I left secondary school and I was working towards gaining admission into the university, I had to leave home, leave Lagos completely, and I went to Ife. So when I got to Ife and I was in the training program for writing JAMB, on the first day of attending the training, the first day, I realized that I don't think I had been in school. That was what I realized. I realized that I've not been going to school. Just it was a deep struggle. I remember crying a lot and just looking to God. Then I told God, it was like maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the training. It was in the night, and I told God that, God, I admit that I am very dull. I need you to do something about me. That was what I said. And so I expected that by the next morning what will happen is I will suddenly know physics, chemistry, biology. I'll suddenly be able to solve complex problems. But what God did for me was exposure. That's the best word to cover what happened. Exposure in terms of music, like to the littlest of details. I stopped listening to the songs that I used to listen to. I just deleted everything in my playlist. And then I started listening to Hillsong, Jesus Culture. Then I had this unsatiable hunger for knowledge. And that was what happened. It never stopped. I, from reading what I needed, started to read wider than that. So I started to read a little bit of psychology. I started to watch people talk about different. I was just interested in multiple things. And from there, it was easy. Then coming to lead with JD Group, I saw the question of identity in a fast-paced world. I have listened to that audio over and over and over again. So that audio somehow let me, it set a guideline for my personal retreats. So my personal retreats, I intentionally make sure that I shut down listening to a lot of things and I just streamline what I want to listen to the end that my mind will be enlarged, exposed more. Truly, truly, truly. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The next question will be, yes, sir. How do you envision the concept of the 1% evolving in the future? Do you think there are going to be additions or subtractions to the concept? Are there going to be changes in how people pursue this concept as a whole? Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, so that's a very interesting one. And I feel like one of the things that, I mean, the initial 14 are already timeless principles. And that's something about me. I really, really want to drill things down to like first principles, right? Like that would not change. And with the new phase we are entering into, I feel like you have to integrate master AI, right, into this. You must master how to use artificial intelligence. I mean, because it's not really artificial intelligence that will replace people. It is people that have mastered how to use artificial intelligence that will replace people. Artificial intelligence itself will not just replace people. So in your workflow, in the workflow of anyone who will be the 1%, you must learn how you can leverage artificial intelligence as a personal assistant, as an executive assistant. So just see AI agents as you employing people to make your life easier, to make your work easier. For instance, I have an executive assistant that helps me to keep track of things, right? That I could say, hey, I just got an email, have a response to that email and send it out, right? So the person has to learn how I write, and then the person sends emails on my behalf, right? I mean, first instances I might correct, and then after a while everything is already well understood by him, as it were. And then it's a whole lot of other like things as well, right? You want to sketch a concept, maybe you want to build your own house, and you'll be thinking that, like, I don't know how I can actually communicate this to architects for them to get, right? You could play around with, like generative AI that you craft your prompt, and then it gives you ideas of, what the house will look like. And then when it looks like what you're after, you can now ship it to the architect and say, hey, this is something like what I want, right? So it's just see AI as your personal assistant, like your own exclusive personal assistant. So you can decide that you want an AI personal assistant in terms of, instead of studying, right? It helps you curate what you want to learn. It helps you to generate the kind of pathway, a customized pathway. You can say, hey, I want to learn the idea of quantum physics within 52 weeks, and I have just 30 minutes per day to learn it. Create a syllabus for me and stuff like that. Look at that. You already have a full syllabus that will take you through like quantum physics in 1 year, right? So that's an AI for study. You want to master photography, you can create an AI as well that kind of like, helps you. So it's a range of things that AI could do, and so you must learn to master it early on. Another thing I think I would add next is be financially literate, right? Be an economist. Yeah, I mean, that's something that I feel I need to add, because within the past 2 years, I have gotten more lessons in financial intelligence and financial planning than I've ever done in all of my life, right? So, I mean, at the point when you begin to talk some numbers with some people, you need to know the numbers. You need to have a mind that thinks in numbers as well. So, I've always thought in words, but now I'm thinking in numbers a whole lot, right? So, I think that's something, if I want to, like any young person, please go and master numbers. Go and read. There's a particular particular book I'm reading right now that I feel that will be a very helpful resource for people, as it were. Yeah, that'll be a very helpful resource. I might share that shortly. Okay. Yeah.
I was going to say that you already answered the next question I was going to answer, which was how do you think artificial intelligence and automation will play into the concept? Yes, yes, because I know that there's this thing that stayed trending like 2 months ago or 3 months ago, where people would say they would design, okay, this is what I want to be in the next 10 years. I want to be this, I want to be this, I want to be this. Then they put their thoughts in ChatGPT. They type what are the things I will need to do to become this in the next 10 years. So ChatGPT will give them a full prompt, like a full list of things to do, books to read, everything they need to eventually arrive at that future. And then because I had to learn photograph personally, I drowned myself so much in YouTube videos. I was watching YouTube videos every night in school. Every night. I'll do MTM midnight sub, 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. And so I'll download videos. And that was what I was doing for nights upon nights. But that entire process, now, ChatGPT can give somebody a streamlined process for that wouldn't take the amount of years it took me to eventually reach the level of at least excellence that I have gotten to now. So yes, 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 yes. Thank you so much. So I would ask again, if you could redesign society to redefine success collectively, what elements of becoming the 1% or the 1% mindset would you preserve and like ensure that it is part of the construct of society itself?
Yeah, well, I feel like every component I've mentioned are quite indispensable to a society that will flourish, right? From a strong circle of companions to you read yourself to greatness, like have no button the devil can push. I mean, virtually everything is going to be a component, but if there is a word that may capture that holistically, what the outcome should be for the entire world, I mean, or society, it would be shalom, right? The word shalom is kind of like far reaching, right? It's beyond prosperity, it's peace. Well, it's beyond peace, rather. We all know it majorly as peace, but it's peace, it's prosperity, it's tranquility, it is well-being, it is health, right? It is also health, right? So it's just this collective state of being where everyone is at their best state, right? And they are not agitated, they are not in anxiety, they are not scattered, they are not fragmented, that kind of thing, right? So I would say that would be a core principle that my own becoming the 1% should lead to as an outcome in society. So if all of us have that as what we are pushing to experience, it really will make a lot of difference, as it were.
Thank you so much, sir. Final question from me before I start asking the questions from others. If you were to meet someone who genuinely believed they were not capable of becoming the 1%, how would you inspire or challenge their worldview?
It's interesting because I got a 4-page letter today, right? A 4-page PDF, right? Today that kind of like, okay, it was yesterday night, but I read it today, right? That kind of like detailed the process by which somebody got transformed under my watch. Like basically, this person was listing out their entire lives have been transformed in 1 year of meeting me, right? And I feel like the first principle for me is the principle of delighting. Before you can call someone forth to greatness, you must first delight in them genuinely. So I kind of like take people into my heart and just delight in them, just really love on them, right? First in my heart, before it's even a physical thing, before it's expressed, right? It's like I've seen the end of their life from the beginning, right? I'm seeing what they are capable of becoming by just delighting in them. I think I wrote about this a bit in one of my newsletters I did, yeah. So delighting, and then number two is like meeting them where they are, right? Meeting them where they are, because a lot of times we usually want to pull people to where we are instead of going to meet them where they are, right? So when we meet them where they are, the first thing it does to them is, wow, like how would this person be meeting me where I am, right? It's just like, I was in Oyo yesterday, and then I was sharing about, imagine that, you get a call from Elon Musk that he wants to come visit you. And I was using that to show how that God actually used to come to the garden to meet Adam and Eve, right? I mean, God will leave his throne and then come meet them where they are. It wasn't saying you have to come where I am, it's I will come meet you where you are. And like the idea of standing and rising from your own house and going to visit somebody shows genuine interest. It shows intentionality. I want this person in my space. I want this person in my life. And I'm not bothered about the inconvenience it will be for me to go visit this person where they are. So meeting people where they are sends a very strong message to people. Like it speaks to the core of their being that this person really, really, really is interested in me. And then there's a term I use that I learned from a mentor of mine, an American called Uncle David. I wrote a book about our conversations. It's called Conversations with Uncle David. And he usually uses a word when he talks about his relationship with me. He says, I'm so blessed to be able to come alongside you, to be able to come alongside you. See, language is something that I cherish so much because language is powerful. Language is powerful. Like, sometimes the way we use language sometimes makes people feel like this person wants to take ownership of me. This person wants to make any progress I make alluded to them. This person wants to make me a trophy in their show glass. But the term come alongside, it speaks about like, no, it's beautiful. It speaks about, I want to walk with you. I want to walk with you, right? I want to be a part of your journey. It's not like, come, let me show you what I can do with your life, or something like that. No, no, no. It's consider it a privilege to be in your life. That's what coming alongside means, right? And I feel like that idea of first delighting the people, then meeting them where they are, then coming alongside them will always transform people. It will transform people like so deeply, and there will be no iota of transactionalism in it, because a lot of relationships are transactional. Like I mean, if you come alongside somebody, if tomorrow they tell you that they feel like you've been a blessing to them, but they need someone else, you don't feel like it's a personal attack. You just feel like, I'm glad that I was able to walk alongside you for this period of time in your life, and I'm so glad. Thank you for the privilege. And you go on with your own life, and then as the person progresses, you are delighted that they're making progress. If we did life this way, life would be beautiful. I tell you, right? So that term alone is a mental model for me that has allowed me to be able to come alongside a lot of people without first of all wanting to annex them under me. I'm not interested in annexing people under me, right? There are people that would stay with me, throughout. There are people that would do shout outs for me, right? And they will keep doing it again and again. There are people who will even give me things, right? To show me appreciation, right? And stuff. But there will be those that would not do any of those. And it's fine as well. Because in the long run, the beautiful thing is that, thinking from an eternal perspective, your rewards are not only on earth, right? The true rewarder of people will know what you did in the lives of people and will reward you. So I think that's that's it.
Thank you so much, sir. Wow, delighting in them. Ha! Wow, it has reordered how I would interact with people that want some form of help or mentorship or whatever it is from me. Because I'm just like, okay, just do this so that you can. But first, wow, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
It's a pleasure.
The first question, hi, sir. Since I was young, I've been complimented several times for being a wise person. And growing up also, I've seen part of me be dominant on several occasions. But here's my question, sir. What intentional structures and processes can I subject myself to ensure that this wisdom is utilized in a more productive and effective way? And this time with a broadened sphere of influence. And how do you build your mind to be able to birth something not common? And also how to move from prophecies to realities, especially in the marketplace? That's the first question.
That's a very, very interesting question. So very quickly, I would say that wisdom could be a theoretical thing when it's not solving problems for yourself and for other people. So it's just theoretical, right? We can evaluate wisdom not in how many light bulb moments you have, but wisdom is actually in the application. Wisdom is, so you could have understanding, but wisdom is actually the application of what is understood. If you are not applying, then it may not yet be fully termed wisdom. Right? If you are not applying, it may not yet be fully termed wisdom. So wisdom is actually justified of our children. What it means is that the proofs, the outcomes is what justifies wisdom, is what says that indeed wisdom was here. Do you understand the picture? So I think for that person, if I mean the idea of moving from prophecy to prophecy to manifestation is usually a product of wisdom. So I'll give the illustration of the woman whose boys were about to be taken into captivity because their late father owed money. A prophet, look at this thing, and this thing is what is happening. And then he said, what do you have in your house? Right? In that moment, what she needed was already at home, but there was no wisdom to translate what she had at home into the solution she was looking for. Do you understand? So wisdom came in that moment. What do you have at home? Oh, I have a jar of oil. Okay, go and borrow vessels and then begin to pour, right? And then sell what you have poured, then take the money and go and pay. That was wisdom, right? Helping take prophecy or the idea of I'm going to meet a prophetic person who can give me but I mean, imagine that Elisha had not told her to sell. She could have just kept all those things at home, right? And said, so what am I going to do with all this oil, right? So, but he told her sell. So that's wisdom. So wisdom took what's it called? Like it took us from prophecy to manifestation, as it were. All right, that's number one. Number two is what kind of structures, right? To actually increase this thing, go and get people around you or get into programs where there is a greater demand on what you know than you've ever. I mean, because sometimes people stay in their comfort zones. They stay in their comfort zones. They are like the wisest amongst all their friends. Nah, you will not be serving yourself that way, right? So right now, I'm actually going through a program that has professors like like advanced folks across the world, that has architects, that has all kinds of people. I mean, that has all kinds of people in it. And I mean, like, these guys are bright people. They're like it's most of the classes are like conversations. They're like conversations, and everybody has to weigh. Sometimes I mute my microphone and I tell my wife, please come and listen to these things, right? Like I turn off my video and then I tell my wife to come and listen to what's going on. And then it's like, man, in these classes, if you are not rigorously applying your mind, you'll be bored. You'll be bored to death, right? The conversations happen in almost monotones because these are very old men who are talking about these concepts. They've lived in the concepts for too long that it has now become second nature to them, right? So they just keep, then the person just goes, so it goes like this and it goes like that. And then, you think about it from this angle. And I'm like, what's going on here? But what happens is that it's pushing my mind. Like, it's pushing my mind. Try not to be a local champion. Ensure that you have people that can drill you. I call them mental sparring partners, people that you can spar mentally, right? And they can poke holes in the things you're saying, right? They can open new windows of insight for you and stuff like that. So that's number two. And number three is that how do you build a structure around it? I think for me, writing has really been a very significant way of building a structure around wisdom, right? The more I write, the more I'm able to process my thoughts. But the interesting thing is that writing does two things. When I write publicly, it means that I can help people and get feedback at the same time. So I'm getting feedback and then I'm helping people. So sometimes the thoughts are not even fully formed yet, and I just put them out there. And somebody's saying, "Oh wow, like I've been trying to understand this thing for a while." So as the person points attention to what they were trying to understand, it opens my mind up to more. And then I can start talking about that some more, right? And then it's like a win-win, situation for myself and for the people who have read what I've written. So I would say that those are some of the ways you can attend to the things that you asked. Yeah, whoever that is. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Next question. How do you stay on even when you may not feel like it on this journey?
Paul said, "O King Agrippa, I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision." So I have a particular quote that I've kept posting again and again, and it's about how the utterance of vision must be loud in your heart until it has furnished your heart with all the granular details of how to make the vision come to manifestation. Without vision, people cast off restraints. you must be flooded with a vision of the end point you are pushing towards. I mean, like, I don't need external motivation at this phase in my life. I've not needed external motivation for the past 13 years. Yes. No, not even 13 years. For the past 15 years, I've not needed external motivation because there is something driving me, burning inside of me. Go off social media. I went off social media for 5 years, right? It was like I didn't need any external motivation to go off. It was just, it's time to go off this. You need to build formidable internal structures. And off I went. The thing is, everyone who will become the 1%, right, must be able to live beyond external motivations. I mean, it's not a bad thing to have people who push you, who tell you you can do this. But even if I don't have that for the next 30 years, nothing is stopping this pursuit. This pursuit. I tell you the truth. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question would be, what is the advantage? I think you already spoke about it a while back, which is taking yourself as the competition and constantly evolving. But if you were going to add to it, what's the advantage of becoming the 1%, and what happens if we don't?
Okay, so as I've said, like, it's not so much that you won't, as long as you are seeing yourself as your main competition, as your sole competition, right? But the thing is, imagine that you had 5 talents and you were only able to use 2 during your lifetime. I mean, your life would be full of regrets. Only if I could have used 3 or 4 or the 5. Imagine using the 5, right? So sometimes the idea for me is, imagine how much less qualitative life I would have if I don't get to push myself into these things I know that this vision entails, that I can see that I can become, right? So the sense of what will be missing is a very strong motivation. Number 2, the sense of what I'll be depriving the world of is another thing. And then the third is the sense of I will have made God a liar by telling him that, I mean, you gave me 5 talents, but sincerely, my ability was just 2. That I will be making me the liar, right? So those 3 things are enough to push you to keep at it, to keep at it, to keep at it. So yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The next question is, how do I overcome the fear that I don't have what it takes?
I've been there before, right? I've been there. I think I've written an article about that, I think on Facebook or something. Um, I've been there. There was a time in my life, I think this was 2015. It was 2015 or 14, no, 14, where I felt I was good for nothing. I felt I was good for nothing, right? I felt I think that day, that day it was more like, the devil really, really came after me big time, right? And then I was coming back from somewhere, I was going home, that I was strolling back home. And then the next thing, the question that popped in my head was, what are you even good for? Like, there's nothing you're good for. Like, what can you do? What can you do? And then me too, I thought about everything and I felt like, that's true, there's nothing I can do. And this is even to teach primary school students English, you cannot. I'm like, that's true, I can't teach them. It was a wild experience. And as I was going through that, my head was hanging lower and lower. And I was going home and I was just like, my face was morose. I was almost just collapsing into myself with despair. That, wow, what kind of life is this? Until I got home. And then as I sat in my room, suddenly I just started remembering some scriptures God had given me. And I started speaking those scriptures to myself. I started remembering some testimonies of people who had said they met me and their lives changed. So I started speaking those things aloud to myself. And that was how I got the victory over that stuff. I think that was the toughest experience I've ever had. It was a short period, but it was condensed. It was like it was compacted together and just placed upon me at once. But I'm so glad because, like I was. So I need to tell that person that the truth is this: what God has said about you is the first proof of the fact that you can do it. The first proof of the fact that you can do it, because God does not lie. So if God has said it, it is the truth, right? So let God be true and every man a liar, including yourself. Let God be true and every man a liar, including yourself. So when you say I can't do it, say I am a liar, I am lying, right? Say this is a lie. And then you say what God has said is what is the truth. It's a game changer. It's a game changer. And then after that, ensure that you know how to count your blessings. The little impact you've made, the little victories you've won, remember them. That's what helped David when he faced Goliath. He said the lion and the bear. He had to remind himself, and he reminded and he said it to Saul. And that was why he knew he was able to face Goliath. So Your little victories are not a waste. Keep reminding yourself about your little victories, as it were. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Next question. What do you do when your immediate environment or folks are frustrating your plans and making systems you have put in place to not work?
All right. So, one of the first things I need to tell you is the first place you create an environment is not externally, it is internally. Your internal environment is your greatest asset. Your greatest asset. I tell people around me, I said, you are not yet seeing, you are not yet seeing the fullness of what shall be seen, because my inside is very beautiful and there is no way my external will not have to conform to my inside. Like, so I'm biding my time. I am like building progressively towards it. So I guard the inside with all I have. I guard my inside with all I have. Nothing has to touch that inside. External if some people come to Bomosho, they don't see anything about Bomosho that is interesting. But my inside, it's so beautiful. And so it has created an atmosphere. So the first thing people come to experience when they come to Bomosho is, it's not like the place is beautiful, the physical structures, but they experience an atmosphere that is beautiful. The atmosphere is an intangible, but it's an asset. I've had people come from the US, from South Africa, from Germany, and their verdict from the UK is always the same. There's something about this place that is just beautiful. It is the inside they are touching. It is the inside they are touching. But in due course of time, the outside will look like the inside. And then people will be able to see that, oh wow, oh, okay. I was speaking on a live stream. There was an event happening in Abuja, and then I was talking. Not too long after I finished talking, the moderator said, the way you just talked about Bosho, I feel like I have to be there by all means. People have come to buy acres of land when they hear me talk about Bomosho. Like, they've come to buy acres of land. They said, Kai, what you are describing, I can't afford to miss it. Like, because when these things come to pass, I want to say that I was wise when I heard you talking about it. So people have acres of land they've come to purchase in Bomosho just because they hear me speak about. So it's like the inside is what you should cultivate. Cultivate the inside, nurture it. Culture it until the visions of your inside are so strong that you are imposing it upon the outside. So it's like augmented reality, right? Augmented reality, where you can actually design interfaces that are layered on external constructs. So when I see Ogbomosho sometimes, what I'm seeing is what's on my inside. I'm seeing that this place, this area can be, redesigned to this and all of that. So you can do the same thing wherever you are. I tell you the truth. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Next question is, I think, is part of what you already started talking about. How were you able to stay committed to your vision, especially establishing a tech hub in Ogbomoso?
So I've just described what I've described, right? And I think the vision must be very compelling, must be very loud. The vision for me is that I'm going to, Ogbomoso is just a template, right? Where I've discovered 305 other locations across Africa that really, really look like Ogbomoso. And so the idea is to spread this template across those places. And, from 2026, we're going to be kicking that off with great vigor. So we're planning a conference next year that will launch the expansion plans of what we're doing, as it were. So I'm just trying to say that the vision was very compelling. So the vision has been there. Then the other thing is have the internal picture of what you want to see and keep working towards it. Number 3 is I have had the gift of a community that is very supportive, right? So when I talked about having a strong circle of companions, right? I was not saying what I'm not experiencing, right? My community, my faith community, is a very strong anchor for the things I'm doing, like a very strong anchor for the things I'm doing. Interestingly, all of us share similar visions around what it should become, right? So we keep strengthening each other, as it were. Another thing is I feel like it's interesting that I got some validations are nothing. As I said, external motivations are not what drives me, but it's not bad to receive them. I think I've gotten more validation from those outside the country than those inside the country. And so sometimes the truth is a prophet is without honor, right? In his own land. So I've gotten I've had people from across the world. Costa Rica, Canada, Brazil, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Uganda, different parts, who are like, man, what you are doing is amazing. What you are doing is amazing. What you're doing is amazing. But in Nigeria, people, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people don't think in decades, right? They don't think in decades, right? They think in very short time frames. So they are not able to see what the compounding effect of an investment could look like. But what these other folks are seeing is that, man, in 10 years' time, what you've started, this is what it will have become, right? Because they understand compounding, as it were. So yeah, like I'm blessed to be able to think in the long term, right? I'm blessed to be able to think in decades, to be able to think 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, as it were. So when some people are seeing challenges, I'm like, I will outlast these challenges. The challenges will fade away. Like I will be the last man standing. It's not possible. I'm the last man standing already. Do you understand the picture, right? So that is something that has also helped me to be able to look at most challenges and then just flick them away. I mean, I've faced challenges, significant ones, but they say Elemiloma last, right? And I take that
Yes, sir.
even I,
Yes, sir.
I take that even beyond the normal statement. Those who have the Holy Ghost will be the ones to last, right? So apart from just the strong people, right? Those who have the Holy Ghost will also be the ones to last, that kind of thing.
Sir. I would like you to speak about team building with volunteers, particularly how to give back to them as they serve. Successful people ask better questions, and as a result, they get better answers. That is a line from the book The Art of Asking Questions by Sajidi. Hi guys, it's Loba here. I'm a product manager amidst many other things. And asking questions is such an important aspect of my job because it helps to understand the user better and helps to properly determine insights, properly determine things that we are going to implement in the product to ensure that the product is solving the user problem or the user needs. I said all this to say, get Sajedi's book. It helps to give you a proper frame on how to ask questions, gives you or equips you with the right models, the right frameworks for coming up with questions and asking questions. Now, this doesn't just work for me as a product manager. It cuts across every form of career and even your life as a whole. The better your questions, the better your answers, and then the better your results. Thank you.
I mean, it's still the same process that I mentioned when it talked about, like delighting in people, meeting them where they are and coming alongside them. I mean, Ogbomosho, we have had to do a lot of things that involve volunteers, and that's one of the things, right? If you don't love people, if you don't care for people, they would know, and suddenly it becomes transactional, right? They would know if you don't really care for people. If you can't ask somebody who is volunteering, maybe on the day of, I mean, like some people are very, very surprised that I greet them on their birthdays. They are very shocked. They're like, how did you know, right? Some people, I send gifts to their parents, right, on their birthdays. I could just say, hey, today's your mom's birthday. I send money to them and say, help me buy this for your mom, and stuff like that. And so when they see these things, they realize that this person is really, really interested in their lives, is interested in them as people, and not just because of what I stand to gain, right? So you must not see people as stepping stones to your own goals and your own visions without you thinking about the fact that they are also humans who also have goals and visions and dreams. So you should think of how to support them in their visions as well. I can't count how many recommendation letters I've written, whether for jobs or whether for admission to schools abroad. Like, it's constant. And I do it with joy because these people have been a blessing to me, and I'm always looking out for opportunities to be a blessing to them. So if you can actually make up your mind that you want to be a blessing to those who will volunteer for you, even the way you will speak to them will be different. But if it is just that I have this event or I have this project, I must succeed by all means, I'm looking for people that will work with me, that would support me, what they will keep hearing every time is me, 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 I. So even the victories will not be a collective victory. They won't be able to say we did it at the end of the day. They always say, oh, it is JD's project, or it is that person's project. No. But if you delight in people for who they are, if you meet them when they are, if you come alongside them, you would see that even years after. I mean, just some days ago, one of the people that worked with me at the lab sent me money to say thank you, right? And this is not a strange thing. People who have left, they keep sending me gifts to say thank you. Thank you for nurturing us. Thank you for pouring into us. Thank you for shaping our lives. Thank you for doing all of these things, right? So I'm just saying that these are things that if you want to build a team of volunteers, in fact, if you have your own personal money, you can say you would host a dinner for everyone, right? After maybe the event is over, you could say, hey, let's go get something. Or you buy drinks, or you buy, like, do something to show that they are not just numbers in your own plan to get to the end goal you're trying to get to. And after you have gotten to the goal, you just discard them, right? Like, okay, you've served your purpose now, you guys can go. But if you follow what I just said, you will find that people will gladly want to be involved in anything you are doing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I don't know how to say thank you enough, but thank you so much, sir, for your time and for explaining and talking about these concepts. Thank you so much, sir. It is truly an honor to have you here. Thank you so much, sir.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Loba. And I look forward to the second installment of this.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Bye-bye, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.